Have you ever stopped and asked yourself a really strange question? I mean, how did Earth even get here? Right now, you're standing on a giant rock flying through space at about 107,000 kilometers per hour. You can't feel it, and I can't feel it too. But we're all traveling through space together every single second. There was once a time when none of this existed. No oceans, no mountains, no forests, no animals, no dinosaurs, no humans, and not even Earth itself. Billions of years ago, you wouldn't find a planet. What you'd find is absolutely nothing. So how do you go from nothing to a planet with oceans, millions of species, towering mountains, and over 8 billion people? Did Earth just appear one day? Was it created in an instant? Or was it the result of billions of years of tiny events? If just one event in Earth's history had happened differently, you and I probably wouldn't be here having this conversation. The truth is that Earth's story isn't just the story of a planet, it's the story of how we became possible. Because before there were cities, before there were countries, before there was history, before there was life, there was an incredible chain of events that took billions of years to unfold. And honestly, the more you learn about it, the harder it is not to be amazed. So how did Earth begin? If you want more videos that explain the stories behind the world's biggest events, don't forget to subscribe. Welcome back to Lens. So let's go all the way back. About 13.8 billion years ago, scientists believe that everything we know today, including every star, every planet, every galaxy, and even time itself, began with an event called the Big Bang. Now hold on, when you hear the Big Bang, don't imagine a giant explosion like in the movies, because there wasn't empty space waiting for something to explode into. The Big Bang was the beginning of space. Within the tiniest fraction of a second, the universe began expanding. It wasn't filled with planets or stars yet. It was unbelievably hot, so hot that nothing could survive. No atoms, no light as we know it, just pure energy. As the universe kept expanding, it slowly cooled down. Then tiny particles began joining together. The simplest elements in the universe, like hydrogen and helium. They might sound ordinary today, but without them, nothing else would ever exist. Over millions of years, gravity began pulling enormous clouds of gas together. Imagine dust gathering into bigger and bigger piles. These piles were so massive that they eventually became billion stars. Those stars gathered into huge families. We call them galaxies. One of those galaxies would become our home. We call it the Milky Way. If you've ever looked up at the night sky away from city lights, you've probably seen a faint white band stretching across the darkness. That's our galactic home, containing somewhere between 100 and 400 billion stars. Our sun is just one ordinary star among all of those billions. There's nothing particularly special about it. Fast forward to about 4.6 billion years ago, somewhere inside one of the Milky Way's spiral arms, a gigantic cloud of gas and dust began collapsing under its own gravity. Scientists call it a solar nebula. At first, it looked like just a massive cloud floating through space, but gravity kept pulling everything inward. The cloud started spinning faster and faster as it spun. More and more material collected in the center. The pressure became enormous. The temperature kept rising, until finally, the center became so hot that nuclear fusion began. And just like that, our sun was born. For the very first time, light filled this small corner of the universe. Around the newborn sun, there was still an enormous spinning disk of dust, rock, ice, and gas. Tiny grains of dust began sticking together. Those grains became pebbles. Pebbles became rocks. Rocks crashed into other rocks, growing larger every time. Some collisions were gentle, others were unbelievably violent, but little by little, gravity kept pulling everything together, and hidden among all those spinning rocks was one small, growing world, a world that, one day, would become our home, Earth. But don't imagine blue oceans, green forests, or beautiful mountains just yet, because when Earth was finally born, it looked more like hell than home. The newborn Earth looked absolutely terrifying. The surface wasn't solid. It was an enormous ocean of molten rock. Lava covered almost everything. Volcanoes erupted constantly. The air was filled with poisonous gases like carbon dioxide, methane, and sulfur compounds. There was no oxygen. If you somehow stood there, you wouldn't stand there for very long. It was a world that looked more like something from a science fiction movie than a place anyone could call home. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the young Earth couldn't catch a break. For hundreds of millions of years, space was incredibly crowded. There were huge rocks, asteroids, and even small planets were flying everywhere. Earth was constantly being hit. It was like Earth was being built, then destroyed, then built again, over and over. Scientists believe that about 4.5 billion years ago, a planet roughly the size of Mars crashed into the young Earth. This wasn't a small collision. It was one of the most violent events in our planet's history. The impact was so powerful that enormous amounts of rock were blasted into space. For a while, Earth was surrounded by a gigantic cloud of glowing debris. Then gravity went back to work. Little by little, those pieces of rock began coming together. They collided and slowly formed one giant object we know today as the moon. The moon that lights up our night sky may actually be made from pieces of the early Earth. Without that collision, the moon might never have existed, and if there were no moon, Earth would probably be a very different place today. Our tides would be different. Our planet might wobble much more as it spins. Even the stability of Earth's climate over billions of years could have been affected. It's amazing to think that one unimaginably violent crash helped create the conditions that would eventually make life possible, but Earth was still far too hot. It would take millions of years before the surface became stable enough for something extraordinary to happen. Once Earth finally cooled, something appeared that would change everything forever: water. Then, it was like the entire planet had become one enormous volcano. The volcanoes were exploding everywhere, and every explosion sent huge clouds of ash and gas high into the sky. Those volcanoes were actually helping build Earth's future because they were releasing gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, methane, and sulfur gases. These gases slowly formed Earth's very first atmosphere. But this is not the kind of air you'd want to breathe. If you took one breath, that would probably be your last. There was almost no oxygen. The atmosphere was poisonous. The sky probably didn't even look blue. Scientists think it may have looked orange, brown, or even reddish. Depends on the volcanic gases filling the air. The sun itself would have looked different through that thick haze, and if you looked up at night, the moon would have appeared much bigger than it does today because it was much closer to Earth. You might be wondering where all the water was if volcanoes were releasing water vapor. See, the planet was still far too hot. Any water that appeared immediately turned into steam. Earth was wrapped in a thick blanket of steam. It almost sounds impossible that this place could ever become our home. Even in all that chaos, Earth was changing very slowly. Little by little, the surface began cooling. The lava started hardening into the first pieces of solid rock. The violent eruptions became less frequent in some places. The atmosphere slowly changed, and once the temperature dropped just enough, the steam that had filled the sky for millions of years finally began to fall. Scientists believe it may have rained for millions of years. Those endless rains filled the low places on Earth. And for the first time in our planet's history, the first oceans began to appear. For the first time, Earth had liquid water, and where there's liquid water, life may not be far behind. For the first time, Earth was becoming stable. Something happened that scientists are still trying to fully understand today. Somehow, life began. Somewhere in those ancient oceans, tiny molecules began combining in just the right ways. Exactly how this happened is still one of science's greatest mysteries. There are different ideas. Some scientists think it happened near deep-sea volcanic vents, where hot, mineral-rich water poured from the ocean floor. Others think lightning striking Earth's early atmosphere may have helped create the building blocks of life. Whatever the exact process, at some point, around 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, the first living organisms appeared. And if you saw them, you'd probably be disappointed. No dinosaurs, no sharks, no whales, not even fish. Just tiny, single-celled organisms, so small that you'd need a microscope to see them. But don't underestimate them. Those tiny organisms would eventually become the ancestors of every living thing that has ever existed, including you. Back then, these tiny organisms didn't need oxygen, because there wasn't any. In fact, if modern humans had traveled back in time, we wouldn't have survived for more than a few moments. Earth simply wasn't built for us yet. Then, around 2.4 billion years ago, some of those tiny organisms evolved into something extraordinary. They learned how to use sunlight to make their own food, a process we now call photosynthesis. And as a byproduct, they released something that would completely transform Earth: oxygen. At first, it was just tiny amounts entering the atmosphere, but year after year, the amount of oxygen kept increasing. Eventually, there was enough oxygen to support far more complex forms of life, and suddenly, evolution seemed to speed up. Single-celled organisms became multi-celled organisms. Simple sea creatures appeared. Then strange animals unlike anything alive today. Life experimented with every shape imaginable. Some species disappeared. Others adapted. Some grew larger. Some became faster. Some learned to hunt. Others learned how to survive being hunted. Earth had become one enormous laboratory, and evolution was running millions of experiments at the same time. It's amazing to think that all the forests, every bird in the sky, every elephant, every whale, and every human being can trace their story back to those tiny microscopic organisms floating in Earth's ancient oceans. Over the next hundreds of millions of years, life would grow bigger, stranger, and more spectacular than anyone could have imagined. Dinosaurs would rise and fall, and eventually, a completely different creature would inherit the planet. Around 230 million years ago, a group of animals we know as the dinosaurs appeared that would dominate Earth for an incredibly long time. They didn't all look like the giant monsters we see in movies. Some were no bigger than chickens. Others grew longer than buses. Some hunted in packs. Some ate only plants. Some had feathers. Others had armor. For more than 160 million years, dinosaurs ruled the planet. Modern humans have existed for only about 300,000 years. That means dinosaurs lived on Earth for hundreds of times longer than we have. If you had visited Earth back then, you would have thought the planet belonged to them forever. But Earth has a habit of reminding every species that nothing lasts forever. About 66 million years ago, a massive asteroid, roughly 10 kilometers wide, struck what is now Mexico. The explosion released more energy than billions of nuclear bombs. Dust and ash shot high into the atmosphere. Sunlight was blocked. Temperatures dropped. Plants began to die. Animals that depended on those plants starved. Then the animals that hunted them began disappearing too. One by one, many of Earth's greatest creatures vanished. Around 75% of all species became extinct, including almost every dinosaur. It's one of the greatest disasters our planet has ever experienced. Long before the asteroid hit, small furry animals called mammals already existed. While dinosaurs ruled the world, they mostly stayed in the shadows. They were small, quiet, and easy to overlook. But after the dinosaurs disappeared, mammals began evolving rapidly. Some returned to the oceans and eventually became whales. Some learned to fly and became bats. Others grew into elephants, lions, monkeys, and thousands of other species. Then, much later, around 300,000 years ago, a new species appeared in Africa, Homo sapiens, us. At first, we weren't the strongest animals. We couldn't run the fastest. We didn't have the sharpest teeth or the biggest claws, but we had the ability to think, to imagine, to learn, and to work together. Over thousands of years, humans crossed deserts, sailed across oceans, climbed mountains, built villages, cities, and then entire civilizations. We invented farming, built pyramids, sent rockets into space, and somehow, a species that once struggled to survive on the African savanna ended up walking on the moon. When scientists search the universe, they've discovered thousands of planets. Some are much bigger than Earth, some are smaller, some are hotter, some are frozen solid. But so far, Earth is the only known planet that supports life. We're the perfect distance from the sun, close enough to stay warm, but not so close that our oceans boil away. We have liquid water, a protective atmosphere, a magnetic field that shields us from harmful solar radiation, and a moon that helps stabilize Earth's tilt, contributing to a relatively stable climate over long periods. If just one of those things were dramatically different, life as we know it might never have existed. Sometimes we think Earth is ordinary because we see it every day, but when you compare it with the rest of the universe, it's extraordinary. A tiny blue world floating through an unimaginably vast universe, carrying every human who has ever lived. Out of all the places we've discovered, this is still the only one we can truly call home. So we've traveled across almost 4.5 billion years of history. You see, just like humans are born, grow older, and eventually die, stars do the same thing. Our sun may look permanent. Every morning it rises, and every evening it sets. It's been doing that for billions of years, but even the sun has a lifespan. Right now, it's roughly 4.6 billion years old. Scientists estimate it has about another 5 billion years before it runs out of hydrogen fuel, and when that happens, the sun will begin expanding until it becomes what's known as a red giant. Scientists think our planet will become far too hot for life. Long before the sun reaches its largest size, the oceans would slowly evaporate, the atmosphere would change. Whether Earth is eventually swallowed by the expanding sun or survives as a scorched, lifeless world is still something scientists continue to study. Human civilization has existed for only a tiny fraction of Earth's history. The end of the sun is still billions of years away, long after every city, every country, every language, and probably even humanity itself has changed in ways we can't even imagine. Today, our planet is constantly changing. Continents are still moving, mountains are still rising, volcanoes still erupt, earthquakes still reshape the land. The climate has changed naturally many times throughout Earth's history, from ice ages to much warmer periods. And today, scientists are also studying how human activities are contributing to rapid climate change, adding another layer to the story of our planet. The important thing is that Earth has never been a planet that stands still. It's always evolving, and maybe that's what makes Earth's story so beautiful. Out of the countless planets we've discovered, this tiny blue world is still the only place we know where forests grow, where rain falls, where birds sing, where people laugh, dream, love, and tell stories. So the Earth began with tiny particles drifting through space, countless collisions, billions of years of change, and an incredible chain of events that, against unbelievable odds, made life possible. And maybe the greatest lesson from Earth's history is that the universe didn't promise us a home, but somehow, against all the odds, we found one. And that's a story worth remembering.